Hello everyone! Last lesson was a brief introduction to the overall interface layout of Style3D and some of the functional properties of the 5 window, as well as some of the operations in the 2D and 3D windows. This lesson will introduce you the Select and Move tool and the Edit Pattern tool. Under the Home option in the top of the menu bar, there is a total of 3 sections. First, we have the Select or Move and Edit Pattern tool. These two tools are the most frequently used tools in our software. Then in the next section, from pen to edit grading, these are common tools we use when editing the pattern. And the last section is from edit sewing to fix pen, which are other common tools we use for the whole sewing and crafting process. Starting with select or move and edit pattern tools, these are used differently between macro editing and micro editing. The shortcut key for the select and move tool is Q. Now we can click on the pattern in the 2D and 3D window to select or move pattern pieces. Doing so allows us to fully select the whole pattern piece. We can also select through block selection. We can go to edit mode by using the shortcut key Z. If we try to select the whole pattern piece, we find that it doesn't work. This is because we can only select the outline of the pattern. We can also do box selection under this tool. Keep in mind that if you box select, only the highlighted pieces are selected. So if you select from left to right or right to left, it doesn't really matter as long as all of the pieces are highlighted. So that is the comparison between the two tools and their selection options. So these are the basic operations of the Select and Move and Edit Pattern tool. As I mentioned earlier, the Select and Move and Edit Pattern tools are the most common tools we will use. Now, if we right-click on the back piece, we'll see a lot of functions for editing the pattern. Let's take a look at the top function, that is, select patterns with same specified property. First, let's look at the particle distance. We will see that our collar and whole body pieces have been selected, but our sleeves are not selected. So this is because you can see that the body pieces has a particle distance of 20. So all the pattern pieces with the same particle distance of 20 will be selected. However, our sleeves have a particle distance of 10, so it's not selected. Next subcategories are layer and fabric. Layer can be found in the property editor under the particle distance, and fabric is under the fabric column in the object browser. Next, we will look at symmetry pattern with seam. We will click on it, then hold down the Shift key and place it in a vertical position. Okay, you can see the resulting pattern is perfectly symmetrical with our original back pattern. Now, you'll find that if we go into edit pattern mode to edit our patterns, the instant symmetrical patterns will also be edited in a mirror image. It's not just the shape of the pattern that's related here, it's also the sewing line. You will see here that the two patterns with the linkage have an orange line in the 2D window. Also to facilitate us to identify the relationship between patterns. Next is symmetry pattern. The difference between this and the function before is with the seam. The sewing line does not follow that linkage. Next is instance pattern. Trying it out now, you will see that the relationship line of the instance pattern becomes green, like this. Similarly, we can also identify it by editing the pattern piece, and we will find that when we edit the original pattern, the linked pattern will also be edited in the same place. However, the sewing line here has not been synchronized, so it is easy to identify that one difference in these functions. Okay, let's introduce our next function. Let's start by generating a pattern. Then we'll right-click on the initial pattern we chose and generate internal profile. And click on it, and it will generate a graphic of the pattern. If we put this on our new piece, we can see that the rectangular pattern will generate an internal graphic of the back pattern. Then we can convert it to a whole, which is a common operation. Next, generate lining. There are 3 types of linings, which we can see more clearly in the 3D window. The first one is the operation of generating lining inside, which is the most common method we use to generate the lining. So we can see this new generation in the 2D window, and we can also see it in the 3D window. This new lining layer fits perfectly to our original piece. This is a very common feature to use when we do some double layered garments. Now, if we select Generate Lining on the outside, the same thing happens. Obviously, the difference is that it is on the outside. The third type is Generate Filling Pattern. This function is a little bit special and mainly used for down filling. So we can also try it out, place it here, and see if it's generated on the inside of our original pattern. The difference is that it has an additional filler property, so we can use it to determine the specific filler and amount of filler for the back pattern piece. Then we can edit the quilting distance and we can get a nice fluffy amount. Alright, so these functions are covered. Now we will talk about the production of a down jacket. We can find that the relationship line of the down filled pieces is generated in blue. The next function is to add an equidistant internal line, so let's click on that. We will see that this is an equidistant internal line along our outline. For example, if we set our distance to 3, it is more exaggerated, and the default direction is to the inside. We can also select the opposite direction, which produces an equidistant line on the inside. We can also choose both directions. If we generate an equidistant line and its edges are not closed, we can also choose to extend to the nearest inside line or to its border. The internal line distance is edited for the whole pattern. It is important to note that this just generates a line and not extending the pattern piece. If we want to edit the equidistance of the whole pattern piece, we can choose to offset pattern outline. We can also choose to extend or shrink, and if we choose extend, we can set its width and click OK. Now you can see the whole outline is extended by 3 centimeters. Now the following is the reference line function. The reference line function is actually to keep the outline of our pattern as a baseline. For example, if we clone it as a reference line and then edit the edge of the pattern, we will find that the original outline of the pattern has been retained in the form of this reference line. You will also find that this reference line is not selected. Then, if we want to get rid of it, we can just delete it. Okay, now the following ones. From deactivate to solidify, these alter the state of our 3D garment. First of all, let's look at deactivate. The shortcut key is Ctrl plus K. You will find in the 3D window it becomes transparent and purple. If you simulate it, we can see that the whole front part has peeled off. Now if we move the back piece and put it in front of the front piece, we can see that it is not simulated and does not become involved in the simulation. You can see these two pattern pieces are touching each other, however there is no collision issues. So the pattern is still in the 3D window, but it is not actually being used. Let's bring it back to its original state. Now if we just choose deactivate pattern, you can see it still turns purple. However, the sewing lines are still intact. Therefore, the sewing relationship will still be simulated. So these were the two types of deactivation. Deactivate pattern with sewing and deactivate pattern. The next one is freeze. We can press the shortcut keys Ctrl and G, and the pattern will become a light blue color in 3D. Basically, if we go to simulate, the pattern won't move. It won't simulate and it will become completely frozen. It will still collide with other pattern pieces. For example, when I move the front piece into the back piece, the collision will still happen. But you can see it will quickly separate. Now we can unfreeze it and look at strengthening. Patterns which have strengthen applied will turn orange in the 3D window. Now we can simulate it. You can see that the whole pattern has become very stiff. The main purpose of this function is to facilitate the dressing conditions. It is very convenient for us to simulate it to a better condition this way. When I move it, you can see this piece has become very stiff. The shortcut to this is Ctrl and H. Doing the shortcut again will unstrengthen it. Okay, now the next function is solidify. Solidify will give us some force to maintain the original state of the pattern piece, so it's harder to deform. For example, let's try to raise the back of our pattern like this. Then we can turn on Solidify and simulate it. Now we can see that although this should fall naturally, there is a force to maintain the changes that we have made to support it. This is also to approve any morphological effects we have made to our pattern piece. Alright, for our next functions, they are relatively simple. So they're actually copy, paste, and mirror paste. The copy, paste, and mirror paste are different from symmetry pattern and instance pattern above. Let's simply copy it and then press Ctrl V to paste. So we can find it just does a simple copy and paste job. And there is no linkage in the middle of it. The next function is order. This is actually a sorting function for the order of the patterns in the 2D viewport. For example, if our sleeve is overlapped with our back piece, and we need to place our sleeve behind the back piece for some editing, we can right-click on the sleeve to place it behind our back piece. We can right-click and assign it to the last order. Then our back piece will be placed on top of the sleeve. The next one is rotate, which is for the position of our pattern in the 2D viewport. For example, we can do a 45-degree counterclockwise position of the back piece. Now there is an extra point at the top of the checkbox. Select that point and then hold down the left mouse button and drag. This allows us to do a rotation of the pattern. And if you hold down the Shift key, we can rotate in 90-degree increments. Under the rotation function, there are three special options. One is to set parallel to x-axis, one is to set parallel to y-axis, and one is to set parallel to custom axis. For example, if we click parallel to x-axis, there will be a line parallel to our mouse to select the line parallel to x-axis after rotation. If we select this line, we are actually placing this line parallel to the x-axis. So you can try these rotations. Okay, the following flip functions are actually synchronized editing for 2D and 3D. If we do a horizontal flip of the sleeve, we will find that it not only flips the position in the 2D window, but also does a horizontal flip in the 3D window. Then, if we do a vertical flip, it will also do a vertical flip in both the 2D and 3D windows. The next function is the group function. For example, we can select several patterns and make a group for them. Then, when we select them again, these patterns are in the same group and will be selected together. Then we can double-click on the front piece and it will become its own group. With the front piece selected, there will be a new group relationship generated here under the patterns of the scene. We can choose not to show the patterns of this group or to edit the patterns of this group simultaneously. Okay, now at the bottom here is hide 3D pattern and hide all 3D patterns. These are very useful functions. So it's best to remember the shortcut keys. To hide the 3D pattern, the shortcut key is Shift Q. We can show or hide the patterns one by one like this. If you want to hide all the patterns or show all the patterns, you can press Shift plus C. This hides it in the 3D window. Another shortcut is Shift plus W, which can show and hide all the pattern pieces. Alright, so this is how we operate some of the functions when you right-click in the Select or Move mode. Now most of these functions in 3D are similar to those in 2D, such as copy and paste and so on. The difference between 2D and 3D is that in the 3D window it has some functions about the arrangement of patterns. The most common ones are Reset 2D Arrangement Position and Reset 3D Arrangement Position. For example, if we choose Reset 2D Arrangements, it will reset to how it looks in the 2D window. Now we can choose Reset to 3D Arrangement. We can press the shortcut key A here to do a quick placement of the pattern. Now this is point arrangement. And then when we simulate it, it can reset to its 3D position. You can see it's no longer in its flat state. That flat state is only when it's placed in its arrangement point. The 3D window also has some very useful tools, such as superimpose over, superimpose under, superimpose side, and move to the ground, etc. These 4 functions are very useful. So, for example, for the sleeve, let's draw a rectangle on it, and then we can clone the rectangle as a pattern. And then it will create a new pattern in the 3D viewport that looks like this. It's laid out flat. Now we can add some sewing relationship to the pattern. Then we can right-click on the pattern and choose Superimpose Over. Then we can find that this rectangle will attach to the sleeve according to the sewing relationship. Then we can simulate it. It's also very easy to remove it. So the function for the other ones like superimpose under, superimpose side, and so on, they're pretty much the same. Next, in the 3D window, we can also use the Smartly Convert To for things like trim, button, zippers, etc. Different models also have different properties to edit, so you can choose according to your application scenarios. However, you should pay attention to Smartly Converted To options. Zipper and button cannot be turned into a pattern, so you must be careful to choose whether you want to convert it into other model types. Alright, the next function is Focus Zoom. The shortcut key is F. We can select a particular pattern and press F. Our 3D window will quickly focus on the pattern we have selected. Next, let's look at Edit Pattern. The Edit Pattern tool is in our 2D window, and we can click on it directly to edit the position of the pattern. This reference line we made before. You can remove the reference line, and then you can pull or move the outline of the pattern. So right-clicking using this tool, we can see all of the functions are for editing the outlines of the pattern. For example, we can delete an edge. The merge function is also here. Choose the merge function, and it will directly line as the axis of symmetry, and then the sewing line will be the same symmetry. However, it should be noted that the shape in the 3D window is not completely symmetrical, so there will be a surface extension of this line. So after using the merge function, we need to simulate again. Here we can add points to the edge or split the line. We can divide the line into 2 parts. We can also set the length of the line to be divided. We can also set it to be divided in a proportional manner. Uniform split allows you to divide the edge equally. The default is to divide it into 2 lines. You can choose more, like 5 lines, and it will become 5 equally spaced lines. You can also add equidistant internal line for outlines. We normally choose default in the direction, but we've found that it generated an internal line that is not to the outline. So we can do an extension here. You can do this by clicking Use Extent, and it will extend to the edge. The same goes for Offset Pattern Outline, whether to extend it outward or shrink it inward. You can set the distance here. Next is Remove All Curve Points. You can do this by pressing the shortcut V to show all the curve points, and then just right-click on it. This will remove all the curve points here. After you delete it, the edge will become a straight line. In addition, you can also right-click on the pattern and create a cross guideline or create a normal guideline. This will form at the point that we clicked on. The cross guideline is a line that is parallel and perpendicular to the entire window interface, and it is an infinite extension. We can also move the line and attach our vertices to the line. The other normal line is also the same, but it generates a line that is perpendicular to the point on the segment we just selected as a reference line. These two functions are very common, which is why I explain them a bit more. I hope some of our tips will help your 3D creations. If you like what we do, please like, comment, and share this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.